Welcome back, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to enter the hashtag WOZOWinner competition, where 2 matrics stand a chance to win 2 gigs of data. We've got a WhatsApp question, so let's check that out.
Could you please go through a question on trig graphs? All right, matrix. So the question is about trig graphs, and they want us to look at a trig graph. Now, with trig graphs, there's just a few important things that I need to mention there. One, you need to know things about your amplitude, because that makes you know how to determine your range for that function. Also, the restriction that you are given, which will always be our domain, because it's always given to us. Also, how to interpret the graph. And then lastly, you need to know how to look at lengths when they ask you to find a length on that particular graph. So those are just the few pointers that you need to look at. But in specific, let's just look at a specific question from past papers. So before we do that, you need to make sure that you recognize the different shapes of the trig function. Also, don't forget terms used to describe the functions, such as your domain and your range. And then lastly, understand how different parameters change the shape of a trigonometric function. What do we mean? If they say it is shifted 1 unit up, what does that mean? What does that change? You need to know those things. If it is shifted 30 units to the right or to the left, what does that mean? What does it change? What stays the same and what changes? So those are the things that we really mean that you need to look out for. And then, now an actual question from a past papers reads as follows. In the diagram, the graphs of f of x, that's important, and also g of x, that's also important, are drawn for the interval. The interval is also very important. And then the graphs f and g, they intersect at A. So remember, guys, if the graphs are intersecting, what does that mean? It means at that point, the graphs are exactly the same. So you equate them to one another and then solve. So that's what the intersection really, really means there. And then the last point they gave us was B there, which is 360 degrees and -1. Now, the first question wants us to talk about the range of f. Now, f, if we just go back to the question, it was sine x -1, right? So I'm just going to write it here. Our f of x is equals to sine x -1. Now, let's understand what this means, guys. This means that the graph of f, which was the original graph, sine of x, was shifted 1 unit down. What does that mean? It means the amplitude of the graph changes, because now it is no longer going to be between -1 and 1. But it is going to move from being the maximum at 1 and being the maximum at 0, and the minimum moving from -1 being at -2. So in simple terms, it means that from here up until there, you are actually moving 2 units, right? Because that's the amplitude. Therefore, our range will be y is an element of my square bracket, because those values are inclusive there, -2 up until +0. But you know that 0 can never be negative. Some people don't prefer to write it like this. Some people prefer to say y is less or equal to 0, but greater than or equal to -2. It's an either-or situation. You can write it as one of the 2 solutions. They are very much correct, please. So that's what you need to know about the range. How does the range change? It changes when you move the graph and you shift it up or down. So if you translate the graph up or down, the range changes because the amplitude is consequently changed. The following question says, write down the values of x in the interval, that interval there for which the graph is decreasing. Now let's first talk about what does it mean for a graph to decrease. For a graph to decrease, it means that as the values of x are increasing, the values of y are decreasing, because A graph to increase or decrease, we look at the y value. For it to increase, it means as the x values are increasing, the y values are also increasing. So those are the two differences. Now let's look at this one in specific. Now from this point to that point, you can see that moving from left to right, the x values are increasing, but the y values are also increasing. So this section does not hold. From 90 up until 270 there, you can see that moving from left to right, the x values are increasing and the y values are decreasing. So this section will hold for us. And then lastly, from 270 up until 360, as the x values are increasing, the y values are also increasing. So that does not hold. So that means for you to write the solution, it will be x is between the 270 degrees and the 90 degrees. You can write it like this, or you can include the equal to value there because they didn't really mention much about that. So it's either you say x is less than 270 and greater than 90, or x is less or equal to 270 and greater than 90. Or you can just use the interval of brackets there, your round brackets or your square brackets. So please note the two differences. Then let's look at the last question now. It says P and Q are points on graphs G and F respectively. Now I know that we think the word respectively is just an English word, but that's not true. Respectively means what I started with in terms of being P, it goes with what I started with in terms of your graphs. So they said P and Q, and they said G and F, meaning P goes with G and Q goes with F. So that's what the respectively really means there. Let's read the last part of the question. Such that our PQ is parallel to the y-axis. Then they say if our PQ lies between A and B. Now this is my A, that is my B. Meaning my P and Q will be between here. It will be somewhere here. So I'm just scribbling around to show you exactly where it will lie. Nothing on the left-hand side of A and nothing on the right-hand side of B. All right, so guys, that's all that the question is all about. Let's actually do what the question wants us to do. Now, remember they said that on G and F respectively, where they started with P and they went to Q. So what this means is our F is there by G and our Q is there by F, please. So you need to note that the respectively is not just an English word. I know we think it's just a language that is being used, but respectively means the order that we started with is the same order that you're going to continue with. So I said P and Q, and then I said G and F respectively. So P goes with G, Q goes with F. So that's what you need to please also be making sure that you understand. So if I was to draw an example of this, it can be PQ there. It can also be PQ there. It can also be PQ there. Now, one person might be asking, why is it that he's drawing so many lines? They said it is between A and B. So it doesn't matter where it is between A and B. Just not from the left-hand side of A and from the right-hand side of B. We're not looking at that. We're only looking at between A and B. So you can try and draw any line there as long as it is parallel to the y-axis. Now, they want the length. The length we know, a vertical length parallel to the y-axis is always the y at the top minus the y at the bottom. So let's have a look at that. So I will say my PQ is actually y at the top minus y at the bottom. Now at the top it's at P there. So that's what? G of x. So that's going to be G of x minus f of x there. And then I can work around that. So my G of x, as you remember, was our cos 2x minus my f of x was sine x minus 1. And then the cos 2x is a double angle. How do you change it? Now, there's 3 of them. A lot of us, we are always normally confused as to which one to use. What I can give you as advice is you use the one that is dominant on the question that you have. So you can see here that sine will be the dominant ratio, meaning you can change the double angle to be sine instead of cos, or the sine and the cos. Therefore, this will be equals to, if I change this, it will be 1 minus 2 sine squared x minus sine x plus 1, right? So I'm just going to go to the next slide and have more space to do this. So this is actually going to be minus 2 sine squared x minus sine x plus 2, right? And remember, that's still our PQ there. But we still need to go back and see what exactly did they want us to do. So they said we need the values of x such that PQ will be a maximum. Now, I know that most of you will be thinking finding the derivative if it's a maximum and a minimum, but that's not the case. Maximum and minimum, remember also we are talking about the turning point there. So, and this is a quadratic equation. So you can say, if you don't know how to factorize this, you can say let my sine of x to be equal to k, and work around it like that. But in this instance, you don't really need to do that. Instead, they want the turning point, meaning the axis of symmetry. So I'm just going to call it the AOS, right? Axis of symmetry. So axis of symmetry, remember, it will be sine x is equals to minus b over 2a. And then my b there is a -1, so it's minus into -1. My a is -2, so it's 2 into -2. And I will then be at sine of x is equals to minus 1 over 4. All right, so I believe there that you will then be able to do that. You just find your reference angle, and then since it's negative, it's by 180 degrees plus and 360 degrees minus. So please make sure that you understand that. I hope I've answered your question that you said we should try and look at a equation under trig graphs. Now, the most important thing now that I will leave with you is please don't forget to post your questions on our social media platforms. Looney told you about wonderful things that we are having in our platform, competitions and all of that. So who knows? If you send in your questions, then you might be that one person. But please make sure that you send those questions in all our media platforms. That is WhatsApp or our Facebook page. And also, you need to sleep early the night before your maths exam. And then lastly, you need to exercise while studying. When taking breaks, just run around the house or the yard, or just do like 10 push-ups so that your blood can keep running and also you can be energetic while doing. Because most of you complain about exhaustion while you're studying. That's because you're eating a lot of junk while studying and you are not exercising or anything like that. So eat your fruits, drink water, and exercise a bit while studying. Guys, that's all from me. I will see you guys next time. Over to you, Looney.
Thank you so much, Sia, and thank you, Matrix, for tuning in to yet another amazing show. A big congrats to all the winners that will be announced on the Was the Matrix Facebook page straight after the show. We will be back with some more revision on your #1 educational channel. But from me, Looney, Sia, and Keta, it's a thank you and goodbye.